Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on MBH's Fire Chat. I am your host today, Melissa Jeanette Shea, and I am from Meeting of the Minds and Everyday Realty Services. And today our guest is David Hunter, and he's from ADT Taxis. And it's interesting because David and I joined the same month in MBH. So that's pretty exciting. So David, why don't you tell everybody where you're from and a little bit about ADT Taxis?
Thanks, Melissa. Great to join you by that fireside. We did join together. I remember August last year. Quite a nerve-wracking experience being the new kids on the block, but I think we've managed to find our way around MBH. And look at you now presenting your own show on these MBH channels. So yeah, you've done really well. I'm from the middle of England, a place called Leicester in Leicestershire. We're kind of 2 hours from everywhere, obviously in a very small country. So, running a company called ADT Taxis since 2002. It's a long time through my adult life. It's been up and down, but enjoyed most of it. We service the clientele in Leicestershire. I'm trying to think, why would Leicester be famous outside of the UK? We do cheese, but I don't suppose you get red Leicester cheese over there. We've got a great football team that just won the FA Cup in the UK. And Engelbert Humperdinck lives in Leicester. He's a famous singer, a bit like Elvis type, an old crony sort of thing. But great place to live, very convenient for transport. And we joined MBH in August.
Very cool. So that you're from the UK, when we say fire chat, what is a fireside for you? Like where does that picture in your mind?
Yeah, for me, I'd picture a nice little English cottage in the Peak District, with sheep perambulating around the fields. Winter, a bit of snow coming down, a nice log fire. You just go to get that glass of wine or something to sit by the fire. But unfortunately, like you, Melissa, I have a household full of kids, so I would never get to sit by that fire. But in my head, I'm there drinking that wine, just putting my feet up with big socks on.
That's so cool. Because the neat part about MBH is that it's a global company, right? So people like myself from the US now gets to interact with people from the UK, from Australia, from Frankfurt and stuff like that. And it's neat from their perspective what a fire chat is. So like for me, it's the beach because we live by the water and stuff like that. So it's like more of a bonfire for us, And that's what I think is so unique about the businesses is that we blend together with all our cultural experience and our business experience, which it makes us a much stronger company together, united, right?
Absolutely.
So give us a little history. You started in 2002 with ADT Taxi. How did you get into the taxi business? What made you want to get into it?
It wasn't something I planned to do, actually. So like most things, you see an opportunity and you go for it. I started off studying law at college. Went to work for a lawyer's in Leicester. I ended up doing probate, which is wills and deaths. It was so boring, Melissa. Really boring. I was 20 or something like that, and I just decided this is so boring. I've got to get some life experience. I don't want to be sat at a desk all my life. So I travelled to Spain and worked behind bars just to get some experience. Came back and ended up in the world of advertising and marketing, working for large newspaper groups, and became advertising director for a company in London, worked in London. And one of the things, Disneyland, I'll blame Disney for this, they started to open a resort in Paris, and it was a complete flop.
Yeah.
And it still is, apparently. But so they had all these hotel beds that they couldn't fill. Now, part of my job at the magazine was to do promotional travel, reader offers and so on. I saw a gap in the market for doing school travel because it's a safe environment. They can go study French, business studies, etc., all within the safe environment of these Parisian hotels on site at Disney. So I started a company called Study Express, I think it was. And it just grew and grew and grew. And eventually I sold that. And at the end of it, I ended up with 2 minibuses that I can sell. They've still got leases on. I thought, I need to do something with these. So we started a taxi company doing school travel. And that's how it was just to fulfill these payments on these damn minibuses, and here we are, sort of like almost 20 years later. But that's how it all started.
Wow, that's a pretty unique story. So today, how many cars do you have in your fleet?
Well, see, the fleet, yeah, we were hit by COVID March the 23rd last year, and we went into instant lockdown, so it was like falling off a cliff. So we went down from 600 to 70, you know,
Wow.
but there were, 93% down on everything. It was just hospital contracts and, because literally the first lockdown, no one stepped outside their houses.
Right.
But throughout 2020, obviously, people got more confident to come out and work picked up. In the summer in the UK, we went back up to almost pre-COVID levels. Then we were hit in November with our second wave, which really we're only just coming out of now in the last month or so. So the levels are going back up. So we're probably at about 70% to where we were before March the 23rd, 2020, but it's coming back. But the biggest problem for our trade really is recruitment, because a lot of people left the trade, got other jobs and so on. So we have, since the start of the year, started a massive recruitment drive. And that's not just for ADT, but all the companies within the vertical, because I'm working with them, whether it be Gary at VGT or Steve at Steve Taxis, or just recently Mark at Intercity. So our priority at the moment is to start that recruitment, obviously promoting that on social media, using various different websites for recruitment. So yeah, it's going well.
Very cool. So it's interesting. How was your journey through COVID? Because what's amazing is, so we joined MBH the same month. And then how many companies have you acquired during this time period, during lockdowns and COVID?
Where are we? I'm losing count. 1, 2, 3, 4 for MBH. And most of those deals were, some of them started negotiating just after COVID. But obviously it was kind of hard because a lot of people were staying indoors. So a lot of it was conducted over Zoom. And, we did probably break a couple of lockdown laws and went out and actually saw people in, gas stations, as you would say, service areas off the motorway or the highway, heavily monitored by the police. I remember one guy, he wasn't confident to email me his accounts. He was a bit protective over his accounts. And so he'd put them down he'd written them on a bit of paper like that.
Right.
These are the official accounts. And so we met him at a service station. I was in a coffee shop, and you weren't allowed to sit down because you weren't allowed to be inside in a coffee shop. And I had to pretend to be the manager of the coffee shop because we sat down at the table, and this policeman came over and said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm just doing a stock take." And we got away with it. So we were able to conduct that deal at that table during lockdown. But it felt like a different world,
It's amazing how creative you had to get during COVID with business. And do you think being part of MBH helped you with that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Melissa, I absolutely love it. I mean, you and I would never have met, and we haven't actually met. We've met digital versions of ourselves, but in your industry is so different to mine, and that's what I like. These principals like yourself, like me, all from different backgrounds: Singapore, New Zealand, Australia. And the thing we have in common is, well, we're part of MBH. We've created our own successful businesses. And obviously, at the moment, English language, and that bonds us all together. But you learn so much from different people within the group,
One of the things that I thought was the most unique was that although we're all over the world, right, and different countries, different time zones, right, because when we're trying to have a meeting, right, I'm up at 3 a.m. with you guys. And that's nice that it's changing a little bit. But the point is that we all have the same issues that we face. We still recruitment, marketing. And so your strength is coming from the marketing that you did back when you had when Disney did its flop, right? You saw an opportunity marketed on it, right? So you saw a gap in the market. And it's neat because that skill set of an entrepreneur still carries through, because now you saw another gap in the market, right? So Uber, right? People think taxi cabs are going out of business. But when we had our talk and chat with Gary from VGT, he really showed a different perspective. So what's your perspective that you would say to investors or business owners about the competition of Uber? What has it done for your industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think Uber actually pulled the industry into 2021. Prior to that day, it was very much old technology using radios and a lot of companies called radio cars. And it kind of brought us into the 21st century. I mean, Uber's technology isn't unique; it's easily replicated. So basically, we've all replicated that technology. We all have our consumer apps, but what is kind of unique to what our USP is the fact that we're still local. We have the local knowledge. We still take bookings from multiple platforms. Whether it be the app, a web booker, text messaging. You can even book a cab via WhatsApp. We've gone beyond this consumer app, and of course, there's somebody still at the end of a telephone who has all that local knowledge. So Uber's great if you just want to get from the station or from home to station, home to airport. But if you're organising something a bit different, like a trip to the hairdressers, picking up your friend and going to a bar afterwards, all those different vias, or a wedding reception where you've got to organise 100 guests, you wouldn't rely on Uber for that, because it's on demand. Whereas our services in the UK, you can pre-book, arrange, it's all trackable. And there's always somebody at the end of the phone. So when you do lose your purse or your wallet in the back of an Uber or on the back of the taxi, with our service, you can ring somebody straight up and get that back. Whereas Uber, I think you'd have to send an email and wait, 48 days, and chances of getting that back are pretty. And plus, there's the driver safety. I mean, we actually know all our drivers. With Uber, it's a case of just uploading a few docs and off you go. Whereas we have driver managers on the ground locally that will know those drivers individually. So from a safety point of view, that's paramount, really.
Yeah, I think that was the interesting part I learned about your industry, right? Because now I got exposed to it when we were on MBH, and I was watching. You're right. It definitely brought it to the 21st century, right? The technology is there for convenience sake, right? It's great. But the thing that makes you guys stand out, and I think that's why you're so successful in acquiring other taxi cabs, is that personalized service. That customer service went away with Uber, right? Whereas now it's still personalized, it's localized knowledge. It's really transformed the industry. So you've seen growth because of Uber, right? For your company?
Yeah, definitely. The market has grown. It's made taxis more, more now, if you know what I mean. They're more, it's easy. And you know what? There is, I think lockdown has brought this to our attention as well. A lot of people sat here in lockdown, like me, I'm looking at my drive in front of me here. You can't see it, but I'm looking at 3 cars on my drive. And I'm thinking, why do I need 3 cars?
Wow.
And so I think a lot of people in lockdown actually looked at it and thought, well, actually, I can work from home. I no longer need that second or third car. Got rid of the cars. So then it's actually cheaper to use a taxi, isn't it? Whether it be an Uber, an ADT, Take Me vehicle, or whatever. So the market is growing. And also during COVID, we were perceived as being safer than, say, a bus or a coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
drivers had safety screens, wearing masks and so on. So a lot of people used this over public transport.
That's really great. Something else you did during COVID was you developed your own app and the technology behind it. You want to share a little bit about your unique?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, this was a bit of a PR thing. We were like, we've got to be proactive. We've got to generate work from somewhere. It was a project that was in the back of my mind anyway, which is like a bit like a food delivery app, but taking the same concept but expanding it. So obviously we had a fleet of drivers. They're quite adept at getting around the place. So like a delivery driver. So we created it. We called it Eat Me. But it was so much more than food. We found there was like the local farm shop that produces organic stuff was on there. People that just wanted to reach out to their customers. We had a guy that, what's that thing where they're not cigarettes, but they're like vaping. So there's a vaping shop, all these different flavors. And you know what? He went mad. I mean, the vaping shop, he was doing something like £10,000 worth of produce a week for us. People at home. Because in the UK, smoking is kind of on the decline, but vaping is kind of, for those that are giving up smoking, it's It's quite popular. So yeah, he did really well in it. But it was just a way that sort of last minute mile delivery to get drivers busy. So we wasn't actually that profitable, but it actually brought us lots and lots of publicity and got the drivers busy. Because we were competing with some of the food delivery apps that we have over here, Just Eats, Deliveroo, Uber Eats, blah blah, and the list goes on. So we had to diversify and offer different types of products to normal pizzas and things.
So what is the future for ADT Taxis?
Okay, well, the future for ADT is looking grim, and that's because we're ditching that brand. So we've already started the process of rebranding as Take Me. Part of Uber's success, relatively outside of London, is the fact that it's a national brand. So it doesn't matter what city you're in, whether you're in Birmingham, Nottingham, Leicester, London, Oxford, Uber's there, or partially there. So as you get off a train or a plane, you're going to reach for the Uber app, right?
Right.
However, so you might not know you get a better service from the local taxi company that is probably called XYZ Limited, Radio Cars, all these different brand names. So what we thought, we'd bring a network. We've got the technology, get everyone onto that network, rebrand it as Take Me. So it doesn't matter what city you're in, whether it be Leicester, Nottingham, Oxford, Take Me is there as a competitor to Uber, but we're really pushing our USPs. The fact that you can call somebody, the drivers are friendlier. Drivers, I think, are better trained because we run them through courses when we're doing recruitment, and so that's the idea, to build a network to compete with Uber, but bring all the other elements that make us. I mean, Uber has never made any money, has it?
No, which is interesting. Because to be on MBH, you have to be a profitable company to be on board, correct?
Uber would be rejected.
So it's interesting that from an investor's point of view, right, that investing in MBH and a sector like yours is comprised of multiple successful local companies, right? So taxi cabs companies. So yeah, that's a really good point to bring. To think,
So
okay.
obviously we're doing something right if we're profitable and they're not. So they should have really come to us and said, "How do you work the taxi market?"
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing with these disruptors, though, isn't it, Melissa? They just throw lots of money for years. I mean, Amazon was never profitable for years, was it? And then they must have a point where they foresee that they're going to break even and then accelerate fast. But the thing is, for Uber, it doesn't offer anything unique. It's not really disrupting. It's just an app.
Right, right. And I will always say that with business, always customer service, right? Always. It's the personal interaction. And making it scalable has always been the challenge for businesses, right? How do you take a personalized service like for one company and make it scalable? I think that's what attracted me so much to MBH, is that the possibility of growth and scalability, and also the masterminding with, and I think we're 23 now or 24 companies. So that really helps, and the acceleration of our growth, right? Because you're bringing on 3 or 4 companies. I have 2 or 3 in the works. She has, Vicky has a few. Gary has. So you have 22 companies bringing on 1 or 2 other companies. The compound effect is there,
Yeah.
And they're more profitable, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you imagine 5 years from now, Melissa, these fireside chats, it's going to have to be a large fireside, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a bit.
What you do and they do, it's going to accelerate to the point that this is going to be your full-time job.
Yeah, that would be nice. I like working with investors because I want them to see that there's a niche in the market. So what advice would you give to investors to invest into MBH?
Well, my personal feeling on investment is, it's pretty much a safe bet because of the diversity of the portfolio within MBH. So if one sector is down, the other one is prospering, and we found that through lockdown, and they both kind of support each other. So it's a very stable construction, isn't it? And so it's always going to bring a return. So you're not taking a gamble or a punt. It's a pretty safe place. And I also think small businesses, the people that run them and the teams behind them work a lot harder than they would in a corporate. Plus, we are able to find a niche in the market a lot quicker and adapt to that niche without having to go through a massive layer of management structure. So that means, we can easily stumble on that pot of gold, very
Right.
quickly, and any one of us, could on the verticals, you can see just from the sheer passion of all the individuals that they're going to expand. We're expanding. You're expanding. So to me, it's safe as houses to make that investment.
And then there's also businesses that we attract to coming in. So if you're a new business and you're on the fence about MBH, what advice would you give to a company thinking about joining MBH?
Well, I've been doing this for a while now, speaking to companies about MBH, and the way we kind of chat to them about it is the fact that it's obviously, it's a safer environment. You're being looked after by a PLC if you come on board, rather than Joe Bloggs down the road, who's probably doing it. I'll give you a quid now and I'll pay you a couple of quid later. It's a safe environment. It's the knowledge you get from you're part of a bigger team, and the power of the network is key when we're talking to people, because a lot of small business people, they've been hit hard by COVID. They've had all these new technology they have to deal with. They've been traditionally, most of the people we're talking to have been in the business 20, 30 years, well-established business, but they're getting tired with the continual changes that business life brings, and especially with COVID that brought it ahead. So what most thing is, it's about having that network behind them. So they've got people who are from the same industry, same experience, but it means they can concentrate on getting their driver recruitment up, their customers, whilst we could got another department to take care of their accounts or something they're not interested in. So for them, that's the thing. And we see a lot of owners. I mean, a lot of owners are staying with us. They're enjoying it. And I mean, you spoke to Gary. He's probably one of the best for saying it, but he really appreciates being part of a larger team, as we all do.
Yeah. So you got the networking, you got the power of collaboration, and then also you have a different set of expenses, because now you don't have to have, like, you have 4 that you brought on, that's 5 of you guys. You don't have to have 5 different accounting teams. You don't have to have five different marketing budgets. You know what I mean? Like, you can collaborate
and scaling. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some group discounts in there too. So that's pretty unique as well. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us on this fireside chat. You gave some good advice and insight into your market, and you're like my brother in the MBH, because we came on at the same time, so we had to get our baptism by fire that way. Literally fire, right? So no, what lasting advice would you give for people who are thinking about just getting into business itself? Because the future with COVID, and what advice could you give to other future small business owners?
My advice is go at it at 110 miles per hour, but learn to live with your mistakes and learn by them, and don't beat yourself up by them, and just keep trying. Just keep trying. It's simple, really, isn't it? Yeah, just go for it.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this edition, David. And for more information, everybody can look up on our website at MBH. All the principals are listed, and you can find out about their information. And feel free to contact David. All right. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you.